恭请大德森听，为此法会，急切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死离苦得乐，殊真无生。Well, the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attemptless and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะ Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo Sadanto Suchetoye Allahati Sanmyao Sanputo Che. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，念解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, Medicine Master Buddha. 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 Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one. Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, and all good knowing advisors, Amitabha, welcome back. This is lecture number 150. Okay, so far we have some questions, so I'm going to ask if anyone has any more questions. While I take 1 minute, okay, just take 1 minute here to look up an answer for Melinda's question. Melinda's question is, what are the 4 kinds of birth? Anyone? Any question? You can ask your question in Chinese as well if you feel more comfortable, and then I will get, hopefully we have someone who can translate. Yeah. Okay. Anyone? Oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm a bit distracted. No questions? Oh my, okay, all right. Then let me get today's slides out. Okay. And just let me share this with you. Okay, while you're looking at this on your screen, earlier I had made a decision because right now we just started the Flower Adornment Sutra, the Avatamsaka Sutra recitation at the temple. So I thought we're not going to have a lecture today. So this is kind of like a confession. I felt lazy. I thought, okay, it's Fahui for 3 weeks. Maybe today I don't have a lecture, or for the whole Fahui, no lecture. But while reciting the sutra, the first chapter, there was a part about all the difficult things that the Buddha had done. And I thought, oh, I shouldn't be lazy. So that's why we are here today. Okay. But it's not going to be a normal lecture. Why? Because I have a story to share, and I'm taking this opportunity to talk about the when we ask bodhisattvas for help. Okay, sometimes when we ask bodhisattvas for help, what can we really expect? Okay, or how do bodhisattvas help people sometimes? All right, and that's linked to the story that I have for you all today, which I told you last week. I promise I'm going to share the story. The story is this. It's called The Lady with Two Bodies. Okay. And it's, how you say, the reason I'm sharing this story is because sometimes when things happen in life, due to our lack of wisdom, we don't really understand what's going on. And we tend to judge things, or how you say, we tend to label things as, oh, this is no good, or this is bad. How can this thing happen, or how can a person undergo a certain thing like that, without understanding the cause and the effect, without understanding the karmic conditions behind why things happen. We just look at the surface, and we have all kinds of ideas, yeah, or not even just ideas, but sometimes we feel unhappy because we have expectations. All right, so this will become more clear, all right, after we finish this story. So it's a bit long, but I'm very happy to be able to share, because it's a story about rebirth. It's about someone, a real story about someone who died and then went to the hells and then came back. And when they came back from the hell, at a certain age, they remembered why. They remember what happened. They remember why they were in hell, and so they want to share. So that's how we have this story today. So it's a very interesting story, and it also has to do with Earth Store Bodhisattva, not the Earth Store Bodhisattva that we know of, but the Thai version of, or the Theravada version of Earth Store Bodhisattva. I'm not sure if you are aware. Earth Store Bodhisattva is more well known in Mahayana tradition. If you go to the Theravada tradition, if say in Thailand, or you go to Theravada temples and you ask about Kishti Gaba Bodhisattva or Earth Store Bodhisattva, most people will not know what you're talking about. Or if they have heard of the name, they are not familiar. It's not part of their everyday practice. Not like if you go to a Mahayana temple, we have the rebirth hall, and there sitting in the middle of on the altar in the rebirth hall is Earth Store Bodhisattva. But if you go to Theravada temple, no such thing. But they do have, you can use the term transformation body of Earth Store Bodhisattva, and that's part of this story. Okay, so let's get started with this story. This story was told by a monk, an abbot of a temple, and it is told in his voice, because he's the one who wrote the story in his voice. So as I read, or paraphrase the story, it will be from his perspective. Okay, so some parts I'll read, some parts I'll just paraphrase. He starts it by saying, this is the story of the meditation rooms or kutis. Kutis are meditation huts that you find in Thai monasteries. So you go to a Thai monastery, you will find like a little house, a little hut, where in there will stay a monk. And this is more common in the more of the forest tradition, the Thai forest tradition. So that's what a kuti means, okay? So it says, built by the lady with two lives. I used to think, how can there be such a thing as heaven and hell? But I've had some experiences of them at this wat. Wat means temple, is the Thai term for temple. So he says, when I came to live here in 1956 to 1957, there were no meditation rooms. I haven't yet begun to teach here. I had taught meditation since 1952 for a long time before coming to live at this wat and becoming the abbot here. It was only after the case of the lady with two lives that I was able to begin building meditation huts, as I've done ever since. I'll tell you the story of Mr. Poon and his wife Sa Ing. Poon had ordained as a monk for 2 or 3 rains retreats. He could chant the Patimokkha and had practiced meditation. Okay, what are rains retreats? If you come across a Thai monk or a Theravada monk or nun, you usually don't ask them how many years they have been ordained. That would be a question for a Mahayana monk or nun. Or how long have you been ordained? But for a monastic in the Theravada tradition, you ask them, how many rains retreat have you had? Why? Because every year, for 3 months, they undergo something called the rains retreat, where you normally don't travel and you stay in one place. So that marks how many rains retreats that you have observed, marks how senior you are, something like that. Yeah. Whereas in Mahayana, you ask how many years have you been ordained. We don't use the term rains retreat. Yeah. So that's the difference. One difference between the culture of Theravada and Mahayana monastics. And then he said he could chant the Patimokkha. What is the Patimokkha? The Patimokkha are the precepts of the Bhikshu precepts or the Bhikshuni precepts. Okay. So when he disrobed, Mr. Poon, okay, when he disrobed, he married Sa Ing and they had 2 children together. Poon was a wealthy man. He lived in Ampo Tatako in, Nakhon Ran province, somewhere in Thailand. He had a kind and virtuous heart. He liked to chant and pay respects to the triple gem. Oh, sorry, there's a typo. It's not triple, it's triple gem. But Sa Ing was coarse and deceitful. I have seen her wedding picture. Okay, this is the monk talking. She looked like a demon with spots and blemishes all over her face, her hair close cropped, black ears, and a big necklace around her neck. Wherever she went, she would steal something. One day she went to a party for one of her nephews who was going to ordain as a monk, and she stole some gold from the house. Then she accused a relative of Poon who was poorer of taking it. They beat him until his jaw was broken and accused him of being a thief when in fact it was Sa Ing herself who had stolen the gold. But no one would believe that she had done so because she was already quite well off. This was how bad she was. She had made a lot of bad karma. She couldn't chant because she couldn't read. Poon did all the chanting for both of them. He was a good husband to her. He wouldn't look at her in a bad way. He wouldn't criticize his own wife and children. They were farmers and had many hundreds of rai of land because they were hardworking. They had everything they needed. Every year, they would plant rice and build a hut out in the middle of their fields. Okay, so he's recounting their story. When it was time to go to the fields, Poon would stay with his mother in the main house while his wife went out to the fields until the harvest was done. Before doing the threshing, she would get her hired hands to go and steal some of the rice from the neighboring fields and mix it with hers. She was really bad. Nobody suspected her because in that village, Poon and Saying were the wealthy ones who made loans to other people. Okay. That year she was with child. She felt anxious and restless and had a feeling that this year something bad was going to happen, that she would be visited by illness. She buried her gold waist chains under the hut, afraid that her hired hands wanted to steal them. Okay, so I didn't share the whole story, which is longer, but these gold waist chains that she was wearing were her wedding gifts from her husband. Okay, why? Because this is kind of important later in the story. I forgot to put it here, to add it here. So I'm letting you all know the significance of these gold waist chains and that she buried them. Okay, all right. So because she was so stingy, she was always afraid, and so although she had nothing to cause her suspicion, but because she was always stealing things, it is only when you steal things that you become afraid that people will steal things from you. If you are someone who truly your heart is very pure, and you never cheat, never even have the thought of cheating anyone, you will never go around thinking that people are out to cheat you. It's just the nature of the mind. So because she would always steal other people's things, she was afraid that someone would steal her gold waist chains, her dowry, her marriage dowry. Anyway, both she and her child died during birth. After she died, Poon organized her funeral. Poon missed his wife and child, or unborn child. Having harvested all the rice, he sold part of it, and another part he used to make a chatiya of sand as an act of merit in the name of Sai. A chatiya is, I think, like a stupa. So chatiya of sand, I think, is a term to mean an offering to the triple jewel. He did it to make merit on behalf of his wife, his dead wife. Later on, he decided to offer one of his 2 houses to a wat. Again, wat is a temple, to use as a kuti in the Thai style. The abbot agreed to his idea, and so Poon went about building the kuti. When it was finished, he celebrated it with a troupe of Mo-lum singers and some shadow puppets. I don't know what Mo-lum singers are, but shadow puppets is a cultural thing. And I know about shadow puppets because in Malaysia we have that. It's a Malay cultural, what's the word for it? Heritage is one word for it, but that's not the word I'm looking for. Anyway, so that's how he celebrated offering the kuti. He said the kuti was then offered in the name of the order rather than an individual monk, because usually if you have read the precepts for a monk, sometimes a monk may need a meditation hut, and then a hut is built for that monk. But in this case, it was not specific to any monk, so Poon donated it to the triple jewel. Having done that, he dedicated the merits to his wife. All right, okay, so far so good. Poon reflected that now his children were grown up. He was free to ordain as a monk again so that he could dedicate the merits of his action to his wife, even though he didn't know whether his wife had fallen into hell or gone to heaven, or maybe reborn as a human being again. He ordained as a monk for 1 rains retreat, so that usually means 1 year, although it's not fixed. Ate 1 meal a day, live in a charnel ground, and develop insight meditation. So usually when you see ate 1 meal a day, live in the charnel ground, that means he observed the Dutanga practices, the optional ascetic practices. That also includes not lying down to sleep, sleeping, sitting up. And so that's what he did. And after the rains retreat, he again disrobed and remarried. Okay, all right. Now, Saying later recounted how she knew exactly what was happening to her. How could this be? Well, because she was reborn, and this monk was there to witness what was going on. Okay, how she fell into hell and was to stay there for 100 years. On observant days, so this is very interesting. On observant days, what are observant days? This is known as the Uposatha days, the days where you observe the 8 precepts. If you have taken the Bodhisattva precepts, a monk Pramalai would come to teach the hell beings. So that sounds a lot like Earth Bodhisattva. So apparently in the hells, in the Theravada tradition, there are accounts where a monk would come to hell to help the living beings there. And Pramalai, his story is, he's not a legend, he's an actual person. His story is that he is said to be an arhat from Sri Lanka, and his name was Venerable Maliya Deva, and he was supposed to be the last arhat in Sri Lanka. And after him, he was the last arhat, no other arhats. It is said that Buddhism began a decline in Sri Lanka until today. And apparently, if you go to Sri Lanka, there are places where you can still find his meditation chamber and where he lived. Yeah, he lived in a place called Ravana Goda and Kotmale. So my master's is conferred by Sri Lanka University. I just thought of this. And for my graduation, there is an opportunity for me to visit Sri Lanka. It's not fixed, it's not for sure, but there might be, and it might be interesting to see if I can, if there's a way to visit this place. Yeah. Okay, anyway, all right. Coming back to the story. So what happened in hell? He said in hell, they made the hell beings chant and pay homage to the triple gem. Sai Ying had never chanted in the human world, but after being in hell, she could recite all the chants fluently. Pramalai went there to teach them about karma. He taught that in the hell realms, you have to chant and practice vipassana meditation just as a human would. Yeah, sorry about the typo. Yeah, just as a human would. So there is a text attributed to Pramalai. It's about how he would visit the hells and share his stories. And there's also one very interesting story where he received some flowers from someone wishing to make married. Okay, so what he did was this. He went to the Triumphrimsha heaven, the heaven of the 33, where he wanted to make those offerings on behalf of that person to the one of the, let me see, shrines built on behalf of the Buddha. I don't remember which one it was. Basically, if you remember the story, I think I've shared it before. When the prince, before he became the Buddha, after he left home, he left his palace, there were 2 incidents where one was he cut off his hair and he threw it into the sky. And he said something like, if it's going to be successful, the hair will not fall or something. And then Indra came and caught the hair and took it to the Triumphrimsha heaven. And then the second one was a bowl, a golden bowl, after he had received the offering of milk porridge from Sujata, the girl. And he placed the bowl in the river and he said that if he was to be, he made a vow or something, I don't remember what vow it was. And he said that if it would come true, or if he was telling the truth, the bowl would float upstream. And he said, would float against the flow of water. And the bowl did. Yeah. So one of those, Lord Indra, Chakra, the king of the heaven of the 33, took it to the heaven and made a shrine so people could pay their respects. So Pramalai, having received 8 flowers, I think they were lotus flower for someone who wanted to make married, decided to go to this heaven and offer it at the shrine on behalf of that person. And then there he met Lord Indra. I don't remember what they discussed, but he also met the next Buddha, Maitreya Bodhisattva. Maitreya Bodhisattva came from Tushita heaven to the heaven of the 33 to talk to Pramalai and to instruct him to teach beings to make more merit. Yeah, so there's a text that has those encounters. Very interesting. Okay, now coming back to our story. So she was in the hell realm, all right, and each time her husband created merit on her behalf, the hell guardians would let her know and inform her that her punishment was reduced. After everything her husband had done, her sentence was only 20 years. This could not be reduced further because of her karma of stealing. So can you imagine? Okay, so when the husband sold the rice to make a chatiya of sand in her name or dedicate her merit to her, her sentence got reduced 20 years. And then when the husband donated the house as a meditation hut to the temple, the hell beings told her, okay, your sentence is now reduced another 20 years. And when she received the merit that the husband dedicated to her when he became a monk, she got another 40 years reduced. So 20 plus 20 plus 40, that's total of 80 years. So she had 20 years remaining, which could not be reduced further. All right? Okay, then, interestingly enough, but they offered her an option. Because of her good conduct in the hell realm, chanting and paying respect to the triple gem or triple jewel and developing meditation, they would let her go back to the human world for 20 years to repay her debt to her husband. And then she wouldn't have to come back to hell. But she had to promise to observe the 8 precepts every observance day. Could she do that? Okay, so that was the first condition. And the second condition is that she had to build a meditation hut for 80 baht. No more, no less, as an act of merit making. Otherwise, she would have to come back to hell. So she agreed to that. And what happened next? She took rebirth in a house about 2 kilometers from that of Pune, as the only daughter of an old Chinese man who had been married to a younger girl for 15 years. The wife was young, but the husband was already 50 years old. After 15 years, they finally had a child. So she was reborn in a different village very nearby. So this monk said, the original sighing looked like a demon, but this girl was fair. And then he says, when she was 11 years old, she could remember her previous life and said to her father, he said, I'm not your daughter. He said, I'm actually, my name is Sighing and I'm the wife of Poon in the nearby village. All right. And, normally people, they don't, when someone tells you something like this, people are usually skeptics, right? Okay. So father couldn't understand it and sought advice from nearby villagers. Then he decided to leave her alone, but she persisted. So apparently, I think it's something to do with black magic or something. He fed her eggs that had strayed from the nest and eggs that had gone bad, rotten eggs, but nothing made her forget. Then when she turned 15 years old, she demanded to be taken to Poon's house, and she couldn't stand it any longer, so she became very demanding. The monk said she was pretty and smooth complexion because her father was Chinese, but her mind was still that of Sighing. When she reached Poon's house, she said, Poon, who was already 78 years old by this time, said, don't you remember me? It's Sighing. And then her ex-husband thought that they were trying to swindle him because he was rich. Okay. Then she said, Poon, don't you remember when I lived with you, we went to the ordination celebration for your nephew? I was the one who stole the gold and went and blamed him for it. In fact, I stole it myself. I only understood this in this life. Then she said another thing. She said, when I died with a child while giving birth, I went down to hell for 100 years. She explained what's going on. And she said, you took rice and offered it to the Wat, making a chatiya of sand. Then she explained how everything he did helped reduce her sentence. And then she said, you ordained as a monk, I received merit for your actions. And let me see, but she says there are remaining 20 years that cannot be reduced because I made a lot of bad karma, stealing the gold and stealing the rice from the neighbor's fields. They could not forgive this action, so I have to come back to live with you. I promised the guardians of hell that I will observe the 8 precepts on every observance day and build a meditation kuti for 80 baht. So all this while, old husband just listened to her, but he couldn't yet bring himself to believe her. I mean, who would, right? So in a new body, she asked him, said, where is my engagement dowry of gold? There were 2 vase chains weighing 8 baht each. Poon couldn't remember whether they were still there or not. And then she told him, he said, is our hut in the field still there? And he said, the hut in the fields isn't there anymore because I divided the fields up between our children. They're all married now. Then she asked, is the krakum tree still there? So apparently there was a tree there. And he said, yes. So they went to the fields. She knew where to dig because she knew where she had buried the gold in relation to the tree, right? And when she found the gold, she showed the husband who could remember because that was his gift to her. That was his wedding gift to her, to his own wife. And he was finally convinced that, oh, this is my ex-wife. So from then on, she didn't go back with her family. She stayed with Poon, who had remarried, so he had his wife. And later, they took the gold chains and traveled to Bangkok to build to look for a place where they could build a meditation hut. And this is where they met this monk who is now telling you this story. This monk had become the abbot of a temple called Wat Ambawan. And this Saying and Poon and his new wife, as they were looking for a temple, they met a relative who told them to go to this temple. Yeah. So this monk is explaining, so that's how they got their first meditation hut, and it cost exactly 80 baht. And then he visited them at their house. Okay, the monk went to their house, and that's where he saw the photograph, or he saw the gold chains as well. I don't understand how, because they were supposed to sell the gold chains to build the kuti. So I'm not sure. This story isn't very well written. It's a bit messy all over the place. But anyway, that's where he saw the photograph of Poon on his marriage day, and that's how he knew what this girl looked like in her previous life. They say like a demon. All right, yeah. So after that, Poon began to come down with paralysis, and he had to be spoon-fed and washed down. It was Saying who looked after him. The second wife didn't do anything. She went to live in another house. Saying looked after him very well, even though she was a young lady living with such an old man. After 4 years, on the very day she reached 20 years of age, Saying died immediately after making food offerings at the wat. And he knows this because he said he led a cremation ceremony. In case anyone didn't believe him, he said this is a true story. He said when Saying died, Poon was already more than 80 years old. As soon as Saying was cremated, Poon passed away, and in another 2 years his second wife died. Now their family is scattered around. So he's probably the only one who remembered this story, except for one more. He said, just recently I went to give a talk at another place. There was still a man there who knew of this story. He was 91 years old. He was the old, how do you pronounce it, ecclesiastical head of the Ampo, and his name was Prakru Punda Maguta. That means was a very senior monk. The title is given to very senior monks. He was a Chao Kun. He passed away a long time ago. So that's the story. Okay, so why am I sharing this story? You all know the story of Guan Yin, the fishmonger, when Guan Yin appeared as a very beautiful fishmonger. Okay, so again, all right, sometimes we ask bodhisattvas for help, and sometimes things happen around us, and because of our limited wisdom, we don't know what's going on, so we just pass judgment. Okay, this will become clearer as I share more of Guan Yin as a fishmonger story. Shufu told this story when he was lecturing on the Shurangama Sutra. So what is this story? Shufu said, one day, once Guan Yin Bodhisattva transformed into a fishmonger, a woman fishmonger, very pretty fishmonger, who went around a village with a fish basket. And in this village, nobody believed in Buddhism. No one believed in the Buddha. Then there were about 100 young men in this fishing village. And when they all... I'm not sure if it was a fishing village. Yeah. So there was 100 young men in this village. And when they saw this young woman, all of them wanted her as their wife. Okay. So, Guan Yin Pusat, or the lady with the fish basket, told them, he said, there are so many of you. I can't marry all of you. There's 100 of you, but I will marry the person who can pass this test. So he said, the first one who can recite by memory the Universal Door chapter. The Universal Door chapter, I think, is chapter 25 of the Lotus Sutra, I think, right? Okay. She said, the first one who can memorize the Universal Door chapter in 3 days will be my husband. So she gave them 3 days. After 3 days, there were about 40 or 50 of them, Shufu said, who could recite it from memory. So they worked very hard. They didn't believe in Buddhism, but they believe in having a beautiful woman for a wife. Okay, so that's vigor for you. Vigor is very important for practice of Buddhism. So they were showing off. They were propelled. They had a lot of vigor. So 40 or 50 gone in. The fish lady told them, I said, I still can't marry all of you. There's still too many of you. Says, she says, in 5 days, if you can memorize, whoever can memorize the Vajra Sutra in 5 days. The Vajra Sutra is pretty long. It's longer than the Universal Door chapter. And it's not easy to memorize because it's, sometimes if you can understand what you're reading, it's easier to memorize. But the Heart Sutra, sometimes you don't understand what it is that you're reading, especially if you are new to Buddhism. So after 5 days, let me see, 20, Shufu said, 20 people could recite it by heart. So the fishmonger lady said, there's too many of you. So okay, there's another thing you have to do. Anyone who can memorize the Lotus Sutra in 7 days can become my husband. Says, I believe whoever can do that will be worthy. So the Lotus Sutra is a long sutra. It's not a short sutra by any chance. And 7 days is actually very short. So the 20 went back, tried their best to memorize the sutra. By the end of 7 days, there was only one man who could do it. Shufu said his name was Ma, and he came from a wealthy family. So because he came from a wealthy family and he was like the star of the, how some movies, if you want to win the hand of the princess, the king will demand certain things, like you have to go into battle, you have to undergo certain tests, and the victor will be the one who is deserving of his daughter's or the princess' hand in marriage. Yeah, this was what was going on. I said this was Guan Yin who was doing the testing. So Ma, the worthy one, apparently, wealthy family, so they put on a big wedding feast to celebrate the wedding. And Shufu said that evening, after the festivities, they retired, and before anything could happen, the fishmonger, which was Guan Yin in disguise, had a heart attack and died instantly. And after the groom and everyone in the village had gone through so much effort. So from a wedding, they had a funeral instead. Yeah, so everyone was very, from happiness and maybe a lot of jealousy from other young men, it became one of sorrow and grief instead. So Shufu says, as the funeral was taking place, a monk appeared in purple robes, and he asked everyone, he said, what's going on? And he was told that, oh, our new daughter-in-law passed away suddenly and we are going to bury her. Then the monk said, no, because that coffin is empty. You're mourning for an empty coffin. So they opened the coffin and there was nothing inside. And then the monk revealed to them that, oh, that was Guan Yin Bodhisattva. And she came because none of you all believe in Buddhism. And because the young men all like beautiful form, so she came in a beautiful form to try to teach you all the Dharma. So after that, the bridegroom, the unfortunate bridegroom, when he heard that, he left the home life and he actually became a sage, became an arhat. Shufu said this really happened in China. Okay, so now, if for people who, okay, now that we know, oh, it is Guan Yin Bodhisattva, and they say hindsight is 2020, right? So when you look back, we tend to see it through, we don't think too much about it. But can you imagine if it happened, if you were there during that time and you were able to observe? And so you have this village full of people who are not Buddhists. And after all the young men had gone through so many tests, finally someone emerged victorious, and on the wedding night, his wife passed away. If you were the mother of the groom and you were expecting grandchildren, you would think that life is really unfair, right? You would say, how can God let this happen? How is life so unfair? What did my son do to deserve this? He did nothing to deserve this. There's only grief and heartbreak, right? And then if you were one of the villagers and you were observing what's going on, you would think that, yeah, life is really unfair, right? So there will be a lot of sadness going on. There will be a lot of heartache without knowing what was really going on. So Shuvo talks about being able to, then in our story about Poon and his wife sighing, who was looked like a demon, got reborn in the hells and came back again and died at 20 years old. If you didn't know the story, the causes and conditions, then you would think that it was strange. How can a girl at 20 years old apparently it was said that she died of a heart attack on the spot. Like how can a girl in her youth, 20 years old, whole life ahead in front of her, meet with such an unfortunate end, right? So what we can do is whenever we face adversities, or when things are not going the way we expect things to be, because we are unhappy and we are wondering, they say bodhisattvas will help living beings, but is it true or not? We don't know. But the only thing we can do, Shifu says, is to always turn affliction into wisdom, affliction into Bodhi. Like in the case of this young man who became a monk, he realized how empty life was. So Guan Yin's teaching, expedient teaching on him worked really well, right? But if he had clung on to the fact that he had lost his whole future, that this whole life he had been planning for, all the handsome sons that he would have gotten for his parents, and the life he would have led with his beautiful wife, if he kept on clinging to that, being attached to that, then he would have just made life really difficult for himself, right? Okay, so if we can meet adversity by understanding where the suffering comes from. Is it self-inflicted? Is it because of our expectations, our attachments? And if we can slowly turn it around and look for the wisdom or the Bodhi behind it, because it's the same thing. Affliction into Bodhi. Shiva says ice into water. Then regardless of whether it's actually Bodhisattvas are helping us or not, then it will be the same, right? It will be as if Bodhisattvas are helping us all the time. Okay, so that's the principle of these two stories that I wanted to share. Okay, so Sarah has a question. What is a karmic retribution for people born with dark skin, ugly face, and being born in a very poor family? The Buddha, okay, the Buddha has 32 major hallmarks, one of which is he has golden colored skin. And let me see what, okay, I actually do have something to explain that. I just need to look for it. Give me a moment. Let me see, lecture notes, 32 hallmarks. And okay, everything that we get in the conditioned world is a result of the seeds that we have planted. So, for example, I'm looking at the first thing on my screen. The Buddha has level and full feet. Apparently, the soles of a Buddha's feet are as smooth and level as the breast of a tortoise shell, so that his feet are always firmly planted. Okay, what do you have to do to get this? It says you display, you show respect by offering flowers or garlands on hearing the Dharma being explained. You repair stupas and you do meritorious Dharma works, then you will gain the hallmark of the wheel on the hands and feet. Okay, so another mark on the Buddha's feet is the wheel, and that's what you do. Yeah, let me see. Okay, so for having level feet, for example, okay, this is just an example. I know it's not a question you asked. He says this is because the Buddha in countless lifetimes has been firm in his promise to live in accordance with the verbal and realized indications of the Dharma, and also his firmness in having safeguarded the three types of restraints or precepts. Yeah, so that's one reason. Okay, let me see for a gold. Okay, body, the color of gold. Because one gives fine clothing, bedding, gold, silver, and precious jewels, one gains the mark of having a gold-colored body. There you go. You are generous with precious things. And let me see. Another reason given, because there are several reasons given. The other reason is through giving dwellings, possessions, fine bedding, robes, halls, temple buildings, and such. One gains a Buddha's body mark of a gold-colored appearance and smooth skin. Yeah. So if you do the opposite, you're stingy with all those things, you probably get ugly skin, I guess. Yeah. Okay. That was one question. Let me see. There were how many more questions? Okay, I know Lucy had a question. Apart from Lucy, were there any more questions? Were there anyone with any questions? Or anyone with questions now? Before we go to Lucy's question?
Dharma Master, I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned in the story Saiking, how did you mentioned something that she was born from a demon's family? How do we know? Like how's that? How could the monk actually tell that she came from a demon's family because of her face complexion and her
Oh, no.
attitude?
Oh, I may have said it wrongly. No. So what happened was the monk, when after the meditation hut was built, the monk visited the house of Poon's house, and there he saw Poon's wedding photograph with Saing. So Saing had already died and got reborn. So he didn't know what she looked like previously until he saw the wedding photograph. So he didn't say she was reborn from a demon. What he said was, in her past life, she looked like a demon. Does that answer your
I
question?
understand. Yes.
Yeah.
Amitofa.
Okay. No more questions? Okay. So Lucy's question was that she knows someone who used to be a monk. And Lucy, was that person a Mahayana monk, the first one?
Yeah, 不是 Mahayana.
Okay, all right. So Lucy calls him Shufu. Usually the term Shufu is used for the monk that you take refuge with. That means he's your master. So that's what Shufu. And then at least in DRBA, everywhere else around the world, they don't follow this. Everywhere else around the world, when they meet a Mahayana monk, everyone is a Shufu. Every monk or nun is a Shufu. But technically, a Shufu is someone you take refuge with. And every monk or nun other than that is either a Fa Shi or a Shi or venerable. Okay, so anyway, Lucy's question was that she knows a person who used to be a monk and is now no longer a monk. And when she had lunch with this person was not following a vegetarian diet. So she's not quite sure what to make of it. And it's the same thing, right? For the second person, is that right? Oh no, the second person was a Mahayana monk who became a Theravada monk.
Theravada, yes, correct.
And also does not follow a vegetarian diet. Okay, I'm not going to comment on that. Monks in the Mahayana tradition, actually monks in both Mahayana and Theravada tradition, the Buddha allowed men or monks to disrobe up to 7 times. That means you can go be a monk and then go back to lay life, go be a monk, go back lay life 7 times. All right. And for nuns, nuns, once you disrobe, that's it. You can't become a nun again. Okay. Don't ask me why. You have to ask the Buddha. Those are the rules set by the Buddha. Okay. And then for disrobing in the Mahayana tradition, okay, I'm giving you the long story. Okay, just bear with me. You will find less monastics disrobing in the Mahayana tradition than in the Theravada tradition. In the Theravada tradition, it is very common. It is even kind of like a rite of passage. When you reach a certain age, you become a monk for maybe a week, 2 weeks, a month, sometimes up to a year, or you do it thinking that you do it without thinking about disrobing, and then when you feel that you have had enough, then you disrobe. Or in the case of a story, sometimes it's done multiple times. And in those cultures, it is not seen, there's no taboo associated with it. It's seen as a very normal thing, as compared to, say, the Mahayana perception. In Mahayana terms, sometimes people tend to look down on people who have disrobed, which is not a right thing to. You shouldn't look down on people like that, because everyone has their causes and conditions, and you don't know what they are. So why is it common in the Thai tradition or the Theravada tradition, but not in the Mahayana tradition? Okay, it's because in the Theravada tradition, when you leave home, it's for yourself. You practice for yourself. You want to end your own suffering. You're not there to practice the Bodhisattva path. The Bodhisattva path is about ending the suffering of others as you end your own suffering. Whereas in the Theravada, it's only for yourself. So you do it when you feel like it, and when you don't feel like doing it anymore, you stop. And no one's counting on you. Let's put it this way. You are doing it for yourself, no one's counting on you. So when you disrobe and you go back to your family, most of the time they're actually very happy. They're very happy because they get their son back. So it's a normal thing in those cultures. Whereas in the Mahayana tradition, when you leave home, it's together with walking the Bodhisattva path. And part of the vows that we make is to save all living beings. And you start with the people that you really care for, like your parents, your grandparents, your teachers, all those people that are important to you. So you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it for more than yourself. And there are various factors that come into play. For example, when there's more vigor, the stakes are higher, etc., etc., etc. But I'm speaking in general. When it comes to individuals, you cannot judge them based on the generalization of how things should be, unless you have walked in their shoes. Then you will understand. All right. So that's why it happens less in Mahayana. All right. Okay. Now, when it comes to changing of diet or changing of lifestyle from monastic to non-monastic, I won't touch on that topic because I don't think I have any authority to speak about that. But what I would do is talk about how sometimes people from one belief are afraid of other beliefs. Okay, it happens when you don't understand your own belief enough. When your belief is based on faith and devotion instead of understanding, instead of right view and right understanding, it's just based on blind faith, okay, blind belief. Because you don't understand your religion, you're just following blindly. Not you, how you say, there's a tendency where there are monastics who prevent or they caution other people from visiting other temples or going to other houses of worship. Why? Because when your foundation is built on on the lack of understanding or just belief, it can become very superstitious, and it's a very shaky foundation because you don't know why you're doing it. You just believe in it. And so you don't know how to convince other people to stay. So you're afraid other people may be overtaken by other places or by other beliefs. And so that's what happens when you lack knowledge or proper understanding of what you're doing in the first place. So sometimes when they leave to a different place, or they adopt they get disrobed or something like that, whatever they do reflects that understanding that they previously had. That is my how I understand things to be. Because if you truly understand, let me see, if your understanding is proper, is based on the sutras, it is not based on what people say, but based on what you read, and more importantly, based on your own experience in your practice, then your foundation becomes unshakable. When does it truly become unshakable? When you become a first stage arhat. When you become a stream enterer or first stage arhat, your confidence in the Dharma is unshakable. You will never turn back. That is why when you are a stream enterer, within 7 lifetimes you will end birth and death. 7 lifetimes or less. It's fixed. I mean, 7 lifetimes or less. Yeah. For everyone else, because their understanding or their wisdom is not strong enough, there is a possibility of them regressing. Yeah. So, like Lucy, in the case of when you meet people like that, it is usually because they haven't developed a proper understanding of where they were before. Yeah, usually. Yeah. But like I say, everyone's different. Everyone has their causes and conditions. It's easy to speak in general, but when it comes to an individual, unless you know what are the specifics, we shouldn't pass judgment. But when it comes to learning the Dharma, Shifu says that you should always choose a good and wise knowing advisor. Use your own wisdom to choose a good and wise knowing advisor. Because if you're going to get advice, you better get advice from someone who demonstrates they understand what is it that they are saying. And it's not just understanding from a intellectual point of view or understanding from explanation. More important than that is their conduct, their behavior, their personality, the way they meet with adversity, and the way they show patience and loving kindness and compassion. Those are more important than the way they explain whatever it is that they understand. Okay, so when it comes to the Dharma, okay, the more precepts you hold, the better you should be as an example of the Dharma. So if you hold 5 precepts, and the longer you hold 5 precepts, the better the example you should be of what the Dharma represents as a person, the virtues of what the teachings are. And then if you hold the 8 precepts or the 10 precepts or the Bodhisattva precept as a lay person, then the responsibility is on you to be a better example of what the Dharma represents in your conduct, because the precepts are evident in the conduct, not in the way we explain things, but in the conduct. Yeah. So the more the precepts, for example, the bhikshu precepts and all that, the more exemplary. What's the words I'm looking for? The more they should show what the Dharma is, through their conduct. You all get what I mean? Yeah. So the more precepts, the longer they have studied, the better the example they should be for others. Okay. So sometimes when you find yourself holding better conduct than them, then you know they're not your good knowing advisor. Then you don't have to waste your time. If they're a friend, okay, fine. They're just friends. But if you feel there's no need to feel obligated because of their past, you should look at their conduct to determine if you can learn from them or not. Okay? The Dharma is all about surrounding yourself with good and wise knowing advisors. Yeah. Important, okay, that no matter who we meet, we always treat people with loving kindness and compassion. It doesn't mean that just by treating people with loving kindness and compassion that they become our teachers. No, we should treat everyone with loving kindness and compassion, and at the same time, we should also select our teachers or good knowing advisors with wisdom. Okay, those are 2 separate things. Okay, so for the next 2 weeks, there will be no lecture because of every day from 7:20 a.m. to about 3 or 4 p.m. we have the Flower Dormant Sutra recitation, and I haven't had a break for a long time. So we won't have any lectures for the next, let me see, let me just check the calendar until, so the next lecture will be on the first week of July, 7 of July. All right. So until then, we'll take a break, and but the WhatsApp group is still functioning. So if you all have any questions, you can type it into the ask through the WhatsApp group. Okay. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, let's do 3 bows to the Buddha. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing respect to the Realm Master. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Okay, everyone, Amitabha, we'll see you on the on the 7th of July. Okay, Amitabha.
Thank you, Dhamma